Good day, students. You are welcome to Scholars Universal Secondary School. You are welcome to government class. The topic we want to consider today is Lyttleton Constitution. Lyttleton Constitution is the topic we are considering today. But before we go into the discussion for our lesson today, let us quickly remind ourselves on our last topic we did, our last lesson. So we talked about Macpherson Constitution in our last class. So we said the Macpherson, he was the governor that succeeded Arthur Richard. Then the Constitution of the Macpherson came to effect in 1951, and it was as a result of the defects of the Arthur Richard Constitution, and that constitution was designed to address some of deviances or the defects in the Arthur Richard Constitution, and that brought about the Macpherson Constitution of 1951. And don't forget that we talked about the features of the Macpherson Constitution. Out of the features, were made to understand that in the north, only male taxpayers were allowed to vote in the election in the north, while in the west and the east regions, both gender, that is the male and female, were allowed to actually vote, but in the north, only female taxpayers. Then the second thing we saw in the feature was that there was bicameral legislature in the north. So, and in other places, that is east and west, it was only one, that is unicameral legislature. So in that north, we had the bicameral legislature of the chief of the House of Chiefs and the House of Assembly. But in the east and west respectively, we have only unicameral legislature, which was the House of Assembly in each of these regions. Then the third one is that regional executive council were made available at each of the regions, that is the western region, eastern region, and the northern region. So then we talk about the merits, advantages of Macpherson Constitution. So we observe there that Nigerians at all levels, up to the villages, were consulted in the course of designing or making that of Macpherson Constitution, which means that constitution was designed in order to address the problem of the province and the localities of Nigeria, and that means the well-being of Nigeria to some extent were carried along in the course of making the constitution. Then another thing about the advantage is that the opportunity were given to Nigerians to elect their representatives. So the Nigerians were given the opportunity to elect their representatives into the legislative houses and at the regional levels to some extent. So then we talk about the demerits. If you still remember that, we talk about the demerit, and one of the disadvantages, which you know as demerit, is that the minister has no overall powers or control over the ministries and departments which they are made the heads. Then another thing we discussed there, which is that the central governor had too much powers to himself. The central governor, don't forget that the governor, we said it was like the executive president as we have it today in our country. So he had too much powers to himself, and at his own will, he acted against the advice of the executive, which was not supposed to be so. But in order not to waste our time, let us go into the Lyttleton Constitution in detail for today. So the topic, Lyttleton Constitution. Now, the picture you can see here is the picture of the governor we had in that the governor of Oliver Lyttleton, which is like the executive president of today. But then we call them governor. You know, you could remember that if you talk about Clifford, Richard, Macpherson, where they were referred to as what? The governor. They are like the executive president of today. But here, The Lyttleton Constitution is one of them. But here at this particular period, Oliver Lyttelton was seen as the Governor General because they were no more using a governor again. He became a Governor General. So this is Oliver Lyttelton. Yeah. Then we now move to the introduction to the Lyttelton Constitution. So the introduction to the Lyttelton Constitution. Now, when we say Lyttelton Constitution, this constitution is unique to some extent because it was not like that of Clifford Constitution, that of a Richard Constitution, and it also is different from that of Macpherson Constitution. Although Macpherson Constitution is unique in its own way by carrying all the Nigerians along, even up to the province, that is local level. But this one is unique in the sense that it was a constitution whereby it served as the foundation for the independence constitution, that is the freedom of Nigerians and Nigeria as a country from foreign rule, which is independence. So this constitution is so unique to some extent. Then when we talk about this Lyttelton Constitution, as we can see it here, before it came into effect in 1954, there are a number of constitutional conferences that the nationalists and other political elites of Nigeria had. So one of the conferences held in London in 1953, and another one held in Lagos in 1954. So at the end of the day, decisions made at these constitutional conferences served as the basis for the Lyttelton Constitution. And this constitution came to effect in October 1954. The constitution came to effect in October 1954. Now we look at the features of the Lyttelton Constitution. Features of the Lyttelton Constitution. Now, number one here is that Lyttelton Constitution was fully introduced. Lyttelton Constitution fully introduced a federal system of government. So when we talk about the Lyttelton Constitution, it is the constitution that fully introduced a federal system of government. Now, when we say federal system of government, we are talking about a system of government where the powers and functions of the government are constitutionally shared by the government at the center and other component units. This constitution actually made full provision for that. So it fully introduced federal system of government, which is documented in the constitution, and that serves as the basis for the federal structure we have in Nigeria up to date. Now, then in the region, we have three regions, that is northern region, western region, and the eastern region. And these are the component units in the federal structure, with a government at the center, where we have the Governor Oliver Lyttelton as the executive government there at the center. So this constitution actually made provisions for both the government at the center and the component regions. Then another thing we have to look at here is that it divided the legislative power between the center and the regions into exclusive, concurrent, and residual powers. Now, when we talk about legislative lists under a federal structure, they are divided into three, and the three of them are exclusive legislative list, concurrent legislative list, and residual legislative list. And each of them Each of them has their functions and powers as they are stipulated by the provisions of the constitution in the country between the government at the center and any of the component units. So when we now talk about the Lyttleton Constitution, it tried to divide the legislative power between the government at the center and the region into these various legislative lists which I mentioned earlier, and that is exclusive list, concurrent list and residual lists. Now when we say exclusive lists, if we go back to our federal system of government in our previous lessons, we were made to understand that in exclusive lists, both the government at the center and the component units, that is state or the regions, had the power to what? To carry out some functions in the exclusive list. So the exclusive list provides for the functions of both the government at the center and the state, that is federal government and the state. Then when we talk about there is a mix up there. Now when we say exclusive list, is a list that is only designed for the federal government only. Sorry for that mistake. I recapitulate. Exclusive list is only designed for the federal government only. That is government at the center only. So it is only the government at the center that has the power to act or function in the exclusive list. Then concurrent list. It is in the concurrent list that we have both the federal government, that is the government at the center, and that of the component units carrying out their functions. So concurrent list make provisions for both the government at the center and the component unit, that is the state or the regions, to be able to carry out their functions. And the concurrent list is designed for both the government at the center and the regions in this constitution rather. Then the exclusive list is only meant for the government at the center. Take note of that. Then we have residual lists where only the province or the local government and the state can exercise functions. Take note of the differences between the three. Now I said exclusive list is designed for only the government at the center to carry out its functions and power. Then the concurrent list is designed for both the government at the center, the regions or the states to exercise their functions and powers in the society. Then the residual list, it is only designed for the province or local governments and the states to exercise their functions. Take note of that. Then we now move to the number 3 feature here, which is it introduced revenue allocation formula. So the Lyttleton Constitution introduced revenue allocation formula. When we say revenue, it means income that is generated in the country. Now allocation formula is talking about how this income generated in the country will be distributed or shared among between the government at the center and the regions for the development of the society. That is what that means. So it introduced how to actually to share the revenue of the country. So among the regions and the government at the center itself. Then the fourth one here is that it provided for the creation of Federal Capital Territory of Lagos. Now the Constitution also recognized the need for the Federal Capital Territory. Initially, the Nigeria Federal Capital Territory was located in Lagos before it was relocated to Abuja. So, and it was the Lyttleton Constitution that actually made provision for the Federal Capital Territory, and it was located in Lagos. Then number 5 is that Regionalization of civil service and public service was made in that constitution. So when we say regionalization of civil service and public service, when we say civil service, we are talking about the body of executive and the executive departments and parastatals that are carrying out some functions in the country like health, education and all others like that. So dis civil service were divided into regions. That is, the western region had its body of civil service, the western region had its body of civil service, the northern region had its body of civil service. Den when we talk about public service, we are talking about a public enterprise established by act of parliament to provide essential services for the people. So like NEPA for instance, then we had NEPA, then we had some other TV station, radio station and radio station then. So this also the public enterprises were also divided into regions to carry out their functions in this Lyttleton constitution. Then another one is that the office of the premier was created. So the offices of premiers were created. That is another point we had here. So when we say premier, the premiers were the executive heads in each of the regions. The premiers were the executive heads in each of the region. To facilitate understanding, we can liken the premiers to our governors today. So we can liken them to that of governor of Lagos State, governor of Ogun State. But we had regions in practice then. So offices were created for them, and we refer to the head of these regions, the executive heads of these regions, as the premiers. Now, the picture we can see here are the pictures of those who were acting as the premiers for each of the regions. So here, this is the picture of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. This is the picture of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. So this is Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Is the premier in the Eastern region. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe is the premier in the Eastern region. And this is the picture of Alhaji Ahmadu Bello. Alhaji Ahmadu Bello. So he was the premier in the northern region. The premier of the northern region. Then this is the Ahmadu Bello, and here we have Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the premier in the western region. Chief Obafemi Awolowo. So these three we mentioned here were the premiers we had, and they were good nationalists. They performed excellently towards the independence of Nigeria. So as we had discussed in our nationalist movement in the second time. So now let's move to the merit or significance of Lyttleton Constitution. So we are talking about advantages, or we say significance of Lyttleton Constitution. So number one is that the Constitution established the true federalism that promotes sharing of power and functions in Nigeria. Don't forget that in the future I mentioned that it was the one that brought about true federalism, that introduced the true federalism. So now when we now said it established true federalism, so the advantage there is that it promotes sharing of powers and functions in Nigeria. So that means the Constitution actually made provisions for the regions and the governors on their functions in the society, and with that it will bring about political stability at the regions and development at the regions. Then The second one is that the creation of the office of the premier. The second one is the creation of the office of the premier led to the improvement in the regional administration. So now what we are saying is that when there were premiers, that is the executive heads in the western region, northern region and the eastern region, so it facilitates and improve effectiveness in the regional administration. So that brought about improvement in the regional administration in the country. Then the third one here is that ministers were given portfolios and were meant to control their ministries and departments. So unlike what we had in the Macpherson Constitution, where the ministers lacked the real control over the departments and ministries which they were made heads. But in this constitution, they were given powers to exercise their function as the heads of the ministries. And also, they were able to control different ministries, departments that they were made to head in the country. Then the fourth one is that regional autonomy was granted for effectiveness. That is, the regions were given freedom to some extent to carry out their functions in the regions so that they could be able to administer the regions according to the situation or using emergent approach in order to solve the problem of their regions. And that brought about effectiveness in addressing the problem of the regions. Then the fifth one is that Nigerians had the opportunities to be the regional premiers. So when we now talk about the regional premiers, Nigeria had the opportunity to have those who will represent them in the what? In the regions. So we talk about the likes of the Chief Olusegun, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, as you can see it in the picture. We talk about the Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, as you can see it here. We talk about the Alhaji. We talk about Alhaji Ahmadu Bello, as you can see it here. So all these faces you can see here, or this picture you can see here, these are the pictures of our Nigerians representing or taking charge of their administration of the regions. Then let's go to the sixth one. Office of the speakers and deputy speaker were created to preside over regional legislature with exception of the north. With the exception of the north. Office of the speaker and the deputy speaker were created to preside over the regional legislature with the exception of the. So what we are now talking about here is that at this level, at the national level, so there was a speaker as the head of the legislature. There was a speaker at the head of the legislature at the center, at the federal level. So to preside on every regional legislature, over every regional legislative activities. But in the north, that was not like that. That was not like that in the north. So here, and that could be an some kind of disadvantage. But to some extent, we can see that here the regional legislature enjoy a certain level of advantage, because in the eastern part and the western part, there was a speaker and deputy speaker. There were speaker and deputy speaker office created to preside over regional legislature, except for that of the north. So, and to some extent, it is worthy of recognized as a significance or importance for the first time in the Lyttleton Constitution. So then we move to the demerits or disadvantages of the Lyttleton Constitution. The merit or disadvantages of the Lyttleton Constitution. So number one here is that the Constitution still vested some autocratic powers on the governors, Governor General and regional governors. You know, there's no how we can talk about foreign rule or colonial rule, that they will still not exercise certain level of dictatorship, tyranny and oppression in the country, since they are still there as our real executive head. So here, to certain level, the Lyttleton as the governor then also exercise some autocratic powers over the regional governors, that is the premiers. So to some extent, he actually oppress and back on what we call tyranny and oppression over the regions in the country. Then in the second one is that it failed to provide for the position of prime minister, which should be a Nigeria. So because we had Lyttleton as the governor, exercising the real executive powers and functions, so the constitution did not provide for prime minister as a replicate of a parliamentary system of government in the British practice, in the British political practice. So it did not recognize or provide for such office for the prime minister to possess the real executive power. So it is a disadvantage. So and this had given him the opportunity to be there as a foreigner and a colonial master, which is a kind of disadvantage. Then the third one is that it did not create common electoral system for the whole country. Common electoral system was not created for the whole country. Now we said in the north, only male taxpayers were allowed to vote. What happened to the female? Why is the election process, the voters did not involve both genders, male and female, as we had it in the western and the northern and in the eastern region. So this has shown us that there was no a common electoral system in the whole country. And since we are talking about a kind of a federal structure or a federal system of government, to some extent there should be uniformity in the electoral system, and that is a disadvantage that affects the electoral structure or electoral system in the country. Then we look at number 4. It instituted a derivation revenue formula instead of need and national interest. It instituted a derivation revenue formula instead of need and national interest formula. This is another disadvantage of the Lyttleton Constitution in Nigeria. Now, when we say derivation revenue formula, is one of the formula that is used to share the revenue generated in the country between the government at the center and the regions. Now, another types of formula sharing is need or national interest. Now, let me explain each of them to facilitate our understanding. Now, we said it instituted a derivation revenue formula. Now, the derivation revenue formula is saying that each regions will be given certain amount of money as the revenue allocation based on their contribution to the aggregate income or revenue generated in the country. So that is, for instance, if the country's source of income is from agricultural produce of cocoa, palm oil and crude oil, they will look at the quantum or the quantity of the products they have produced, and they look at how much this has generated to the aggregate revenue of the country from each of the region, and they will now begin to share based on the contributions or the in the resources used as the aggregate source of income of that country to distribute income to each of the region. For instance, now in Nigeria, those states that are producing oil, they enjoy more of the sharing formula than other, because they still maintain the derivation revenue formula in the country. So like for instance then in the western region, when Nigeria was highly dependent on cocoa as source of income, the western region enjoyed large proportion from the country's revenue in the sharing formula, because cocoa was seen as the major source of income for the country then, and that proceed was used to build the University of Ife. Then to maintain University of Ibadan and other educational institutions in the country, then the radio station and other infrastructure in the western region. So that was how it was then. Then let's go to the need. Need. When we say need, that is the revenue sharing was not based on the need of each of the regions. So then when we say national interest, not based on what the interest of the aggregate economy is in terms of infrastructural development and other facilities, but it is based on the derivation formula. Then the fifth one here is that it failed to allay the fear of the minorities, as the regional structure favoured the major ethnic groups. Thus, there was agitation for more regions. Now, what we are saying about this is very simple. In Nigeria, we have three major ethnic groups. We have Yoruba. Up to date, we have Yoruba. We have Hausa, and we have Igbos. And these are divided into three groups. That is, in the Yorubas are western regions. Then western region rather. Then the Hausas belong to the northern regions. Then Igbo belong to the eastern region. But don't forget that we still have those who are minority, who are not majority, who are minority among these three ethnic groups and regions we had just talked about. So when we talk about the minority, we talk about the Tiv, the Jaw, the Gala, and others like that. We have them sharing borders with all other regions we have just mentioned here. So all these are also they are also afraid of domination of the major ethnic groups, and also they are conscious of their own development at their own locality as well. So they are very much conscious of this, and they were afraid of the dominance of this major ethnic group. And so at the end of the day, they started to agitate. They began to agitate for more regions to be created to address the fear of these minority groups. And of course, in the subsequent class, we shall see how that led to the creation of the Midwestern region, in order to at least to address the agitation of this minority, agitating for the more regions in the country. Then the sixth one there is that the regional structure wasn't the ethnicity and national disunity. So, as we had different regions, different political administrators, premiers, civil service and public service, as well as the fact that the revenue was based on a derivation formula. It brought about some degree of disunity and ethnicity in the ethnicity problem in the society, which even up to date, despite the fact that we had a federal character in place, we still face that. So that also has become a serious challenge, even up to date in Nigeria. So these are the merits of the Lyttleton Constitution, Oliver Lyttleton Constitution in Nigeria in 19 1854. And the picture you can see here is just the picture of Chief Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, and the third person here is this is the picture of the Sir Tafawa Balewa, which we can see we will see in our subsequent class. He will happen to be the first Prime Minister in Nigeria. So that is all about the merit of the Lyttleton Constitution. So for our evaluations and assignments, we have our questions here to attempt. So we have come to the end of the class for this government for today. So, but don't forget that we had looked at the introduction to Lyttleton Constitution. Then we talked about the features of the Lyttleton Constitution. Then we are talking about the merits and the significance of the Lyttleton Constitution with the merits. So this is where we are going to stop for today. Thank you for part of the class. So therefore, stay safe at home. Thank you.